Today we're going to use a spiffy app called ProtoPie to create this high fidelity prototype that you can use on your mobile device. ProtoPie is prototyping on steroids because it gives you way more capabilities than say Figma or Adobe XD. And if you haven't seen it, there's a part 1 to this video linked below where we used Figma to design everything we're about to prototype. So be a good design student and watch that one first. Alright, so the first thing you need to do to get started is go to protopie.io and click on Get Started here for free, and then download either Mac OS or the Studio for Windows, depending on which OS you have. And you'll need to create an account during this process and all that good stuff. Then here's the project for our previous video that I created for the fictional app. I'm gonna make this available so that you can access this if you want to follow along, just to get your feet wet, so to speak, with ProtoPie. So what we need to do now is you need to install in the plugins. Click on Find More Plugins down here and just type in ProtoPie and install that plugin. It'll ask you to log in and all that stuff. And I have the ProtoPie app open, so it's a desktop app. And what we do is we select the artboard or the frame, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to export that automatically to ProtoPie. So just to show you what's happening here, over here in the layers, you'll see I have a couple things that are hidden. We have the nav overlay that we built right there. We also have hidden or I didn't hide it yet. I'm just gonna take one of these slides because these two elements are real similar to each other. So I'm just gonna drag them over like that, and then I'm gonna hide it. All right. So now we could take this artboard or this frame, select it, right click, go to ProtoPie, plugins ProtoPie, and then choose export. Now that's gonna go ahead and load it up. There we go. All right, and by the way, if you click preview, you'll see the preview. Now one thing you might notice is, why is the background video not moving? Well, that's because it can't export the video from Figma. So what we have to do, that's the first task that we're going to do, is we're going to re-import that video and get that working. So right up here, we're going to click on Media and then Video. Now that's going to open up your file system here. My video happens to be BG3. I'm going to click this and expand it. And I will try to remember to make this video also available in the YouTube description. And then we want to put this at the very bottom. Delete the other one. There we go. Click preview. Yeah, it does not work. Why is that? Well, we got to select it and choose right here, play automatically and looping. There we go. Once you do that, this preview right here will start working and looping. Okay, so there's a number of things that we want it to happen here. And I guess the first thing we'll work on in no particular order is the hamburger menu and getting that thing functioning. So we can see over here that we have our nav overlay. Now if we bring this out, we'll see we don't really have the blurred glass effect because this ProtoPie cannot also import that as a background blur layer. So that's another thing that we're going to go ahead and recreate manually real quick. So we're going to open this up right here. We can see rectangle 3. We don't need that. We're going to delete it. And I know it looks like crap right now, but what we need to do is just go to Shape, choose background blur right there. When you do that, we left click and drag the entire width that we need, and we're going to drag this over inside of the nav overlay group, just like that. Now you have some options here in the property inspector. We have right here mainly the one that we want to adjust is the blur effects. So the blur effects, if I click this, I'm going to get out of the way for a second. We see we have all these options. System dark effects, like we could choose material dark. And when you start exploring with these, you'll see you know, how these change. Like these are light versions, these are dark versions. So I'm just going to choose material dark over here. And by the way, when you go to preview this, of course it's working here. But when you go to view this on your phone, because you can choose device and you can actually preview this on your smart device, your phone, it'll only work, that background blur effect I found that only works with iOS. It does not work with Android. So just understand that one limitation right there. If I'm incorrect about that, correct me in the comments. Okay, so here's our overlay. And now we have some options. How do we want this overlay to appear? We could slide it in, we could fade it in, we can scale it in, we could do all that stuff. I'm just going to slide it in from the right to the left. So that means we need to take this, and the initial position up here, of course, is 0 on the x-axis. We're going to push this all the way off screen right there, which the position is now 390 because the entire width of this phone is 390 pixels. So now that it's over here, we're going to take this little hamburger menu and we're going to click Add Trigger right up here. The type is going to be a tap because we're going to tappy. And then we are going to add a little plus sign, and so that basically means when you tap it, what happens? We have all these options to choose from. Obviously, a million times more than like Figma in terms of prototyping and all that stuff. So we just want to move something, correct? Exactly. So we're going to choose Move. All right. So what exactly are we moving? Well, that's where this drop-down menu comes into play here. We want to move the nav overlay on click, and on x-axis, we want to position it to where? 0. That's why I referenced that before. We want it to be at the 0 position. We also have some other options here, such as the easing. There's a really cool editor that you can use that allows you to change the easing type, and it just gives you a lot of options here. We'll leave it at the default. Duration, 0.2, pretty quick. Maybe we'll try 0.4. You can add a start delay. You don't want to repeat that element for sure. And let's give it a shot. So all we do is come over here, we clicky, and there it is. Very nice. So now let's get the little X button working as well. So again, you know the drill. We'll double click to access it. We'll choose Add Trigger. We'll choose Tap. We're going to specify Move. And then we're going to take our nav overlay, move back to 390. All right, preview. Let's click it and click the X. And there you go. That freaking simple. All right. So what else do we want to try to get working here? How about this little scroll indicator to kind of indicate that you can swipe left in order to get through our little pagination. So to do that, we're going to select it. And we can see it's called Rectangle 1 at the moment. Probably a good idea to rename this to something else. We'll just call this Swiper. There we go. Now this swiper, we want to kind of just do a looping animation where it's just kind of growing and shrinking, something like that. And in order to do that, what we want to do is go ahead and add a trigger. The trigger will be a start. So that means, once this app loads or this prototype loads, right on start, that's going to be the trigger. So we click start, and then what do we want to do? For us, we want to scale it. So in order to scale this properly, if we try to scale it out of the box, because this particular element was made in Figma, if we do this, we're going to get squashed edges, and we don't want that. So when that happens, we simply click up here, Make Editable. Not like editable like eat it, but something that you can edit like this, and it's going to maintain those corners perfectly. So right now, its current X or width is actually 82.45. Let's just make that 82. Let's make the height 34. All right. And so we want to shrink this to what value? We'll come, we'll select it again, and we'll pull it in probably like to right here. And that value happens to be 35. We could just say an even 34 to make it perfect. All right, so we're going to back up. And now that we have that reference, we're going to go ahead and change, or add rather, scale under start, because we want to scale it. So then what do we want to scale? Well, we want to scale the swiper, and it is selected right there. And then what we want to do is we want to scale it to a width of 34. All right. And I'm also going to go ahead and choose to repeat it. And the repeat options allow us to specify a delay. And we can also specify an interval, like how many like what is the delay between the subsequent loops, I guess you could say. We want this to be infinite, so it's going to dim out this count. And then the interval, we'll go ahead and change this interval to something like, I don't know, 1 second. All right, so now if we preview this, it instantly kind of goes pretty fast. So let's change this to 1 second for the duration, hit preview. There you go. You can see how it scaled in. I'm going to hit refresh. There we go. Closer look. All right. So now we want it to scale back out. So we'll take scale right here, Control C to copy, Control V to paste, and let's drag this out so we have a little bit of more room so we can see what's happening here. By the way, hold your space bar and left click and drag to move things around. And for this one, we want to make this so that we push this up right there. And this is going to scale to a width of, what was it before? Well, what is it now? Let's go click back over here. It's 82. I completely forgot about that value. So 82. All right. And the duration 1, the start delay has been automatically added to 1. Notice if we move it, it's going to change that start delay value right there. All right. So let's see what happens. All right, that actually is pretty decent. I think that's good right there. We'll just leave it as that. And we have our menu that works. Very nice. Awesome. All right, so let's move on to the next thing. And the next thing is going to be taking this element right here and making it swipeable. All right, so we have to do a little bit of reworking, but it's not that bad at all, trust me. The first thing we want to do is add a container, and specifically a scroll container. So a scroll container will house multiple containers up here, which we'll get to in a second. And depending on how many you have, you're able to swipe these horizontally or vertically. So let's choose scroll container. We are going to left click around just the general area from the very left to right of the artboard, right there. And so now we see container 1 over here. I'll change this to scroll. Right there, and it's empty. It doesn't do anything at this point in time. Now what we have to do is I'm going to take this scroll container and we're going to lock it so we don't select it. And I want to take this element, which is our headline, and I also want to take this little scroll indicator. We're going to make it a part of the first slide that pushes off when we move our finger. So we're going to take those two elements and we're going to, before we do that, we're going to take our container and we're going to left click and drag out the same size roughly as the scroll container. So container 1, we're going to change to a name of, we'll just call it page 1 or slide 1, whatever. And we're going to take those two elements once again. I'm going to lock that so we can select them. Take both of those and put them in page 1. Then we take page 1 and put them in scroll. There we go. Now we can unlock those. Now if we hit preview and we try to push this, it's on the wrong axis. It's up and down. So what we do is we take scroll and we come down here, make sure my head's not in the way. We're going to choose paging and make sure directions there and containers up there as well. We're going to hit preview and then I will push this, and guess what? We can't do anything else. Why? Because there's no other pages offset to the right side of it, like over here. There's only one page container right here. So what we do is, if you recall, we do have an empty slide 2 right here. So the design's already done for us. So what we want to do is we'll bring that back. I'm going to take temporarily our scroll container. We're going to reveal this all the way out here. So we're going to take page 1 and just duplicate it and then move it over right there. Now I know it's kind of hard to see what's happening here, but I'm going to delete these two elements from inside of it, and then we're going to take slide 2 and we're going to place it right inside page 2. All right. So now I'm going to move those items right over here. All right, that looks to be pretty good right there. And by the way, you know, we could probably temporarily hide this if you want to see like what this looks like. That way we can take it and get this evened up right where it needs to be. All right, so we'll bring this back just temporarily. All right, and now for scroll, We're going to go ahead and bring that back in. Notice how it hides because it's a scroll container. So if we hit preview, we drag it over and look at that. It's easy and it works well. Now we can do the one final thing. We're going to take our scroll, not final thing, but one more thing rather. We're going to take this and push it out pretty far again, just so we can see this. We're going to duplicate page 2. Now we have page 3. Here's our third slide. All right, so handy tip here. Right now this text is not editable, but we can make it editable like that. It's currently using Beboss Kai font, and we can just go ahead and change this to something else. Choose your voiceover or something like that. And then again, you can go ahead and make all this stuff editable and edit it however you wish. I'm just going to change this to step 2 and just leave the rest there. And now if we take our scroll all the way back in where it needs to be, hit preview, we have our 3 elements. Now, another thing I want to do that I actually didn't cover in a previous Figma tutorial while we were designing this whole layout is to add Lottie Animations, which is another way to add animations, and it's very simple to do. And so I have a Lottie animation I want to add for this step 1 right around here, and then also another one right here. And so I'm going to show you how to integrate a Lottie animation. So you'll need a free account. I searched for something like person in order to get this right here. And I like it because it's black and it's simple, and we can edit the color. We actually need ours to be white because we have like that darker purplish background. And so to do that, what we do is come down here and we choose, and by the way, I'll remember to link this specific file in the YouTube description, edit animation. When you go into their editor, it's going to allow you to specify any colors that the person who created this allows you to edit essentially. So I'm going to change it to white. All right. Once that's done, we click this download, and this one's called avatar.json. So Lottie files are in the form of JSON, or however you want to pronounce that, files. And then we come up here and then we choose media Lottie, and then we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to copy, paste my downloads, avatar. There we go, look at that. So it's ready to rock. Also, you want to choose play automatically and looping because we want it to play automatically and loop. And we want to put this in, this one goes into page 3. So real quick, I'm going to drag this out so we can see what's happening. Our scroll container. All right, we're going to move our avatar over here, scale it down, probably something around this size, like right here. And we're going to place that into page 3 right there. Now I also have another one that I downloaded, and we're going to import that, and this is called Recording Spectrum. So this is a cool little animation, and again, we want these to be roughly the same size, and I'm going to put this probably right around here and play automatically and click looping. Now we can take our scroll, move it back to where it wants to be, and then hit preview. Watch this. Oh, that's I know why that happened. It's because I didn't put this into the page 2 container, and that needs to go into our slide. All right, I think that'll work now. Look at that. Yeah. Look at this one. It's just kind of hanging out down there. Might make more sense to put this above step 2 and move everything down a bit, but yeah, it works still. Awesome. So our app is really coming along. I really like what's happening so far. Now this is an issue right here, and that happened because our nav overlay needs to be on top of our scroll container. So I'm just going to drag it up there, and now our nav is seated nicely right there. Okay. Next up is going to be one of the final things, and that is to get these 3 little pagination dots moving over based on the current scroll position of the scroll container. So in order to do that, what we have to do is set up a few things, and this is more, I would say, intermediate. But don't worry, I'm going to hold your hand and we're going to do this together and it's going to be fun. So what we need to do is first set up what's called a detect trigger. All right, so we want to detect something. We want to detect at what position the scroll container is in. All right, that sounds weird, but you'll figure it out. Don't worry. So we've added a detect, and we're detecting what? Up here, we're going to choose a condition, or wait, no, we're going to choose, I'm sorry, our scroll right there. And what are we detecting? We're going to detect the scroll. All right, so scroll, hopefully that makes sense. All right, next up, we're going to add a condition right there. So the condition will be if scroll, we're going to change this to scroll as well, equals 0. All right, now why is that? Because we're setting this up for this first little scene right here. This means if this right here, this slide, synthetic AI for voice synthesis, whatever that means, is present, that's the one that's in view, then we want to make sure that this little dot down here, the white one, the high contrast one, is in position 1 right there. All right, so let's actually zoom up and let's double click into that. It's called ellipse 4, but let's name it something better. We'll call it current dot. All right, so current dot, remember that. Now, what is the current X position of current dot? 17.08. Let's copy that. I'm going to memorize that. And what we want to do is under condition is we're going to add a move. All right, and the move is going to set our element down here, current dot, to an X position of 1708. All right, so the duration is 0.2. Maybe we can make that like 0.4. Don't want it to repeat or anything like that. Now, if we went to go play, nothing's going to happen because by default, it's already there. So we have to add another detect. So we're going to take detect right here, copy it, and then paste it. So that's going to memorize and just copy everything that we have associated with it. So this is going to be for page 2. So detect, scroll, that stays the same. Condition, this changes to 390 because that's going to be the X position of the second slide. All right. Now then we take move and we have to change the X position of the current dot up here. And so in order to get that X position, we're just going to move it over manually. So we'll take current dot, move it over. Right there looks good. That's 44. The position is 44 right there. So let's Control Z to get back out of there. We're going to specify 44 in this version of the detect, the second one that we duplicated, and hit enter. Now, if we're lucky, it's going to work. So let's check her out. Yes. So we need to check the scroll container width is 391. We actually want it to be 390. And when we do that, we're going to go ahead and take this, move it over, and look at that. Moves over. Now it's not going to do the third one. Why? Because we haven't created the third copy. So we're going to paste that, change this here. 390 plus 390, 998 is 780. And then we're going to move this to the third option, or the third little dot, which is 70 on the X position. So we take move, change this to 70, preview it, and here we go. Look how nice that is. All right, so a lot of stuff happening here. We have the animated background. We have this pagination occurring here. We have our Lottie files working here. We have our menu working. And yeah, this is all awesome, awesome stuff. So that is just a pretty simplistic tutorial of the things that you can do. You can do much, much more here in ProtoPie in terms of creating really cool animations and highly interactive prototypes that allow you as a designer to accurately kind of convey what you want with your projects. All right, I think that pretty much tackles everything that we wanted to do here. And that is it. All right, as always, make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. Click the bell notification icon. Do me a big favor, leave a comment and leave a like, and I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.